to Horror Hour.
I see dead
We all go a little mad sometimes. We get you.
people. You are going to die for me.
Here's Johnny.
It's all for you.
All right, hello and welcome to the Horror Hour. It's a place we discuss, we debate, we disagree on all things horror. I'm one of the co-hosts here, Yutaka. Hello. And today I'm joined by Steve.
Hello.
And we are actually, maybe we'll argue a little. Who knows? It's been a hot minute. We're actually going to come at you with a review of The Harbinger. It's a 2022 film written, directed, edited, music, produced by Andy Mitton.
Everything.
Yeah, like wearing so many damn hats. And I know, Steve, you got to see this at Brooklyn Horror Fest.
Yeah, I got to see it at Brooklyn. A good chunk of the cast was there for like a Q&A at the end. So that was cool. Andy couldn't make it. His wife was there in his place. I can't remember her name for the life of me right now, but she had a lot of insight because I guess she's on set. She knows his process. Wasn't sure she had a role in the film. She might have, but she had a lot of insight. So it was refreshing. It was cool.
Huh. Yeah. And it is out now. You can rent or buy on any VOD. So pretty much a brief synopsis is Monique ventures out, and actually we should also kind of state this kind of takes place back during the height of the pandemic, which kind of adds to this. But Monique ventures out of the quarantine to visit an old friend who's plagued by nightmares. She finds herself drawn into the hellish dreamscape where she must face her greatest fears or risk never having existed at all. So with that, I'm just going to kind of start and ask, what did you think of it?
I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. It was definitely not super scary. I don't think it was more like we were saying, we were talking to each other earlier. It was like it's more psychological. I really appreciated like how they took it was a really smart way of taking the fear around the pandemic and like the isolation of the lockdown, putting this like supernatural spin on it. It was clever bringing in a villain that looked like a plague doctor. That was
true.
fun. We've seen that imagery before, but I feel like here it's appropriate.
Yes.
It's well used. It's not just for like, oh yeah, the plague doctor looks cool, let's just use that mask. No, like it's relevant. So I like that. I thought the performances were great.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down and Gabby, but like, one of the standouts for me was like that whole family dynamic with her brother and her dad. Like, oh man, I wanted to be in that family. Like they were fun. That chemistry was pretty electric, I thought. And that was something that a lot of people were coming out of the theater saying too. Like that like family dynamic kind of really like grounded the film.
Yeah, I would actually agree to that. I definitely will have to say again, yes, I really enjoyed this. I really, really liked Gabby's performance though. Oh my gosh. I thought she did a great job. But in regards to the family, I do enjoy the dynamic, but I really was actually a huge fan of just seeing her interact with her friend Mavis. And I thought that was just that dynamic I really enjoyed. And I really also, when you think about kind of the height of the pandemic or back then, it was very interesting how like the color palette of this film and just maybe just the setting as well, it kind of felt what's the word, dilapidated, maybe
Just cold.
Yeah,
It was a very cold feeling film, and not in a bad way, right?
no,
Just
it worked with the vibe. It
yeah.
really like helped set the mood, because I agree, I don't necessarily think I was scared as so much as I was just very unnerved.
Mhm.
Like it definitely we're really still in the pandemic, but
Yeah.
it's not as what it was to where I think everyone's, had a heightened sense. Everybody was just on edge. We didn't know what was happening. There was, misinformation going around. And it was just I felt like, well, I mean, that was a real life horror film, in a sense. So to see this though really added some, just added more to it, I think.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. And like you're saying, that cold feeling, right? It just kind of like the lock. Because you say we're still in the pandemic, but really the lockdown of it all, that
mhm.
felt like one long winter, right? So like
Yes.
that vibe was carried throughout the film. And I appreciated the Elm Street of it all too.
Yeah, the whole nightmare aspect, I really had a good time with that. I would have liked maybe seen a couple more,
Mhm.
but I think what they did was well done.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think maybe maybe part of it was Andy maybe not not trying to dive too much into like, oh, this is like an Elm Street movie, you know.
Of course,
I feel like
yes.
maybe it was like a trying to have a balance. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe there's some deleted scenes out there of dreams.
Well, I really liked because one of the great things though that I found myself as I was watching this is at times though they do try and throw you off to
Mhm.
where you don't know whether you're in that dreamscape or you're in, the real world. And I really liked that balance because there were several moments to where, yeah, they got me good. I was like,
Mhm.
oh
Oh yeah.
damn. I was like, so I really, again, and I think part of that worked so well because Gabby was just incredible, and I am blanking on the actress's name, so I'm gonna Emily Davis, who played Mavis as well.
Mhm.
So Gabby Beans played Monique, and then Emily Davis played Mavis. But she also did a great job when it came to being like terrified and just so frightened of just everything around her. Like I really enjoyed when we were kind of introduced to Mavis and
Yeah.
how
You
she
felt
portrayed
for
that
her.
role. Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's the big takeaway, right, of what Andy was saying with the pandemic and the lockdown. It was just like this feeling of like hopelessness and helplessness, and like feeling like you're alone. Quite literally, this is as manifested as this like entity. Like no one believes me.
Mm-hmm.
No one can help me if I need help. Like, yeah, like that was rough. I think we were saying like where it's not super scary, but like I think we can all like I mean everyone's experience might have been different throughout the lockdown, but like I think we on all some level feel that, you know.
Oh yeah. Um, I found it I think the only thing, not the only thing. There were a couple things, that I had as and I would say make a gripe. Um, Obviously, I mean, hell, we're still going through this in the sense to where you have those deniers
Mhm.
or anti-vax and all that. So yes, that was important to see, and that actress did a good job because she definitely made me hate her real easy.
Funny
Um,
story about her though.
but I,
And I was like, because at the Q&A, she the first thing she said when she got up was like, "I'm sorry for her." Like,
well, that's good.
she was
She's
like, "I'm sorry about this character. I swear I'm nothing like her." So she did get up and say that.
That's funny. And yeah, I don't know. And maybe I think just because of recent events, I'm like, oh, I don't need that like on the screen. However, again,
Mhm.
it works very well with the story. I think that
Yeah,
was more of just I needed to disengage from social media for a hot minute
true, true.
prior, I think, to watching this because this definitely it just felt that's what I'll say. This felt just very real.
Mhm.
Yes, we had that supernatural element, which I will also say I don't necessarily think that was needed. Just like
No. Yeah.
You could do like real world horror just with everything they were presenting in the film. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this film because of that. I found that supernatural element, while I thought looked cool, it's like,
Mhm.
didn't need it. But I
It could have
guess maybe
been,
for the dreams
yeah.
part. But as I said earlier, oh, I want to see more dreams. But I think maybe that's more of just like night terrors in a sense, like somebody,
Yeah.
because they're just, traumatized by being so isolated. Because, you could certainly say that obviously the pandemic, lockdown, anything like that really took a toll on people's minds.
Yeah.
We were all going stir crazy. We were all just, just not in a good place. And so I'm like, man, they could have, to me, I was like, I would have enjoyed seeing that. I get that you kind of needed this other element to bring some of the other factors, but
Yeah.
again, I still really had a great time with this. I was consistently engaged, and I thought they did a great job in terms of, what's the word that I don't feel like it, exploitative, is that the word?
Oh,
In
right. It
terms
was just
of,
using, right. It wasn't using the pandemic just for the sake of using it. Like
like,
it
it
was,
had a purpose and
yeah.
it told a great story that is just a little too real.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why this film really works.
It's, because we're in such a, we make movies about things so much faster now, but like, this is a real part of life, and this is the world that we lived in for many years, for a couple of years, and still going on. But like, obviously, we weren't getting World War II movies 2 years after World War II. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, it just, things just are talked about faster, and some people maybe just don't like that, or but like I think it fits here, right? And I think we need stories like this, I think, to process sometimes,
Hmm.
and like where you're saying, like it could have been a psychological horror film, but like the supernatural is used a lot as a fantastical way to talk about trauma and the things that we've been through. And so I think that I think there's a place for that, and I think it used it well here.
Yeah. Look, I'll be the first to say I think horror is a great medium
Yeah.
to be able to tell such tales to where, in a sense, the topics may be too tough, or it may be easier for somebody to digest. And I don't know. I'm not saying that's incorrect in this case. I guess I really liked the dramatic aspects,
Oh yeah,
and I found those to be just as terrifying. So I don't
absolutely.
know. See, this is where we are kind of disagreeing. Um,
Happens some. Oh, it actually, because we don't normally disagree. I think the two of us are usually pretty
no.
on point.
Regardless, though, I guess my question then would be, do you have any, like, were there any, I guess, negatives for you?
Well, I think, well, we kind of talked a little bit about it before we started recording, was the lore. I think the lore could have been a little sharper, because I think the two of us were kind of like scratching our head like, oh wait, yeah, like this happened
Yeah.
because that, or this explains why that, so I think it could have been clear. Like I did appreciate, and I thought it was funny that they were talking to like a demonologist on Zoom. So just kind of, again, showing the times, but like,
That's
some of it was there, because you have this like method to tell the lore. Um, but again, it has been a minute for me, so maybe part of it is just like me forgetting over the past couple of weeks. But I think the lore could have been clear, because I think if you know the lore, like you could recite Freddy's lore like that.
okay, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
Um,
Like,
yeah, I think that's definitely a complaint I would have as well.
yeah.
Because I watched this quite recently and I was still like, wait a minute, but again, that doesn't detract from
Mhm.
this. I think that it certainly doesn't weigh it down as well, because I guess when they were talking about it, it made sense, but by the end of the film, I was still like, I don't necessarily completely understand. Um, and I keep saying this, so, but I had a great time just because
Mhm.
the story for the most part, the story was solid. The acting was great. The dynamic between, you had the family unit, and then you have the dynamics, just the relationship between her and her friend.
Mhm.
And then there was obviously that little boy, and just the, I guess, supporting cast as well. And I liked where, I believe this was filmed in New York.
Yeah, I think it was half in the city and then half, I think, either upstate or in a different, like something. No, the interior, interesting. The interior was built out. They built that whole
Oh,
apartment.
now that's fascinating.
Yeah. So that was
Oh, I
something they told
like
us during the
that.
Q&A.
Okay,
Like,
interesting.
because remember, okay, so now it's all coming back to me. The scene where the wall is moving,
Yeah.
all practical, because that whole apartment is fake.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I didn't think they I don't know. When I loved I loved the apartment, even though, again, I think it goes with the character in terms that she was not in a well state, so her apartment really wasn't in a well state, but it was a nice big air. Like,
Right,
I was
all the
like,
walls, the kitchen area, all of that
yeah.
was built fresh. Yeah.
I was like, how can I look to see what that cost on Zillow? I don't know why,
In
but
New York, I can only imagine.
right.
Forget it.
But yeah, no, that's very interesting. I like that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think if there are any other tidbits that they gave us. It's been a minute, but that was kind of the coolest one that they gave us.
so two things then. What would you rate it? And since it's not on a streaming platform, would you pay to rent it?
I, in hindsight, would absolutely pay to rent it. I don't know what it costs for a rental. Is it like $10 or
No.
no?
I
Okay.
think $5.99,
Okay.
which is common,
That's not
unless you
bad.
get that like crazy like, what do some movies do, because they
Oh, the day in release.
no. The very expensive movies that don't end up doing well at the box office, so they quickly push them to digital, thinking
Yeah.
they'll be able to recoup that cost. So those are typically, to be able to rent, are $19.99.
That's right. That's right.
And there's only been one movie I would say I paid $19.99 for, and it was very well worth it. But I
That's right.
can't say I've seen any movie since that would be. But this was, I mean,
But
I
for
did pay to rent this.
$5.99, I
I
mean, that's
did pay to
cheaper than
rent
a movie
this.
ticket. Like that's
Yeah, it depends where you live, but yes.
where are you going? Is that a movie ticket for you?
Yeah.
$5.99. Get the frick out of here. In New York, you're like taking out a mortgage. For like 15. Well, I have the subscription service thing.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Keep
So
justifying those prices. But no, $5.99 is not
no,
bad.
$5.99 is not
And
bad. If it was
but
more,
yeah,
I would still pay it.
I again, I paid to rent this.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you saw it at Brooklyn. I didn't get a chance to get a screener. So I was like, I'll rent it, I'll check it out, because I've heard good things about it. I've been waiting to see it, and it definitely delivered. I think if I were to rate it, it's so funny. We keep going between 5 stars and like 10 stars, and we just need to be consistent. So I'm just gonna go with, if I were to give it something out of 5, I'd give it 3.5 stars.
3.5 out of 5. Yeah, I was gonna give it like a 3.5, 4. You know what? I'll go a little more than you. I'm gonna go 4.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go
All
4.
right.
I really, really did like it. I think it came out like, I don't mean this negatively towards the other films at Brooklyn. I mean, like, it came out being like one of my favorites.
Oh, well, that's fine to say that.
Yeah, no. I just mean like it came out like being, if not like my favorite thing out of that. Well,
I would venture to say,
top
if
3.
I saw this in the theaters at Brooklyn, I probably would have had more of an enjoyable experience, just because I really could have, there's just something about seeing things on
Oh
big
yeah.
screen. And I do believe this is in certain theaters right now as well. I just
Oh.
don't believe it's a good.
Seek it out if it's if anyone who's watching this review, seek it out. Go see it. It's a good theater experience. I'll say that, like we were saying, like, it not being that scary, there were some scenes, like, I think, Yutaka, if you saw it in the theater, you might feel a little differently.
Yes, I typically don't I could see certain scenes that I could be like, oh, they're going for a jump scare that could have been effective. It takes a lot for me to really,
I mean, if you're watching on a small screen or even a TV, the jump scares don't work as well at home versus in a theater.
I think the last film that like really got me was like, oh my God. Like, I'm not gonna say a decade ago, but it's been a hot minute. And it's just because when you see so many horror films, sometimes you can either predict or whatnot. And I'm not saying this is that was predictable in this. I actually quite liked that when it happened. It wasn't more of a like,
No.
Again, I was just fully invested in this story. So when things
were high, it had good stakes. This film, some films you feel like the danger, they kind of phone it in. They don't do that here. Like, it feels pretty like
it feels too real sometimes.
Feels pretty but like in a different way, like, and I appreciate it, like, because I'm not to bring up Nightmare on Elm Street again, but like there is an element to like the danger. What?
Nothing.
But there's an element to the danger, right? Like, that is indicative of the film, but different, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Right, because the consequences of a nightmare film are very, cut and dry. Right here, the consequences are like, if this thing gets you, it's a whole different ball game. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I liked the little. I wouldn't say it's twist. I like the spin they took on that, like what would actually happen. And so I really like that, because I felt that really upped the emotional stakes, because I was just like, so again, I really liked it. I'd pay to rent it. I would love to see it in theaters. And so, all right. That's a review for The Harbinger. Again, we both really suggest you go check this out. If you like this review, make sure to hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified of every time we put out new content. We do also have a Patreon at the Horror Hour, and that's where we do additional things, like have an after hours episode that gets a little filthy, raunchy, and fun. And then we do go occasionally we'll go live, and you'll also see us do full movie commentaries and introduce George to actual popular queer cinema, because he's been living under a rock. So we need to fix that. But honestly, we love Scream, but there's more than just Woodsboro. Anyways, with that being said, we hope you did enjoy this. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.